We're going to talk some juicy trade rumors out there for the Bengals on today's show. But first, do you think the Bengals will buck their almost perfect historical trend of not making trades at the NFL trade deadline this year? Type 1 in the comments if you think the Bengals will make a trade, or 0 if you don't think they will. Let's get into Derrick Henry. This is the first one we're going to discuss of 3 players on today's show. There have been plenty of, it's all speculation. There's no actual reporting that Tennessee will consider shopping Derrick Henry, but it does make some sense. Betting odds have been put out there that links the Bengals to him. Bleacher Report labeled them as one of the top 4 fits for him, and the Titans could end up being sellers. Derrick Henry's in the last year of his deal. Looks like Tyjae Spears is going to be a fun long-term piece for that organization. So Tennessee could absolutely end up being sellers this season. Henry has a $10.5 million base salary. That's not an insignificant amount, but it'd be the prorated amount, so let's call it $5 or $6 million. That's a decent amount of change for a team in the Bengals that likes to not spend money long term because they've got the other guys are going to try to pay there. There's also the Derrick Henry trade odds currently out there. The Buffalo Bills, the leader at plus 200. This is for sportsbetting.ag, so it's all speculation, right? Bills, Chiefs, Dolphins, the Cowboys are on there. The Steelers, the Ravens, the Vikings, and then the Bengals down there plus 10,000 or plus 1,000, 8th on the list. It does make some sense. You can make a rational argument for it, right? Joe Mixon has not been that great of a player as of late. He's kind of shown some signs of decline. Although he was kind of not so great last week, but was looking better early on in the year. And the Bengals have no trust in the guys behind Mixon. And Mixon's already had a pretty high workload, a high volume of snap counts, and you're worried about him breaking down. I thought he kind of looked a little bit tired last week. Hopefully the bye helps him out there, but I don't know if Joe Mixon at this point in his career can handle a 75% workload. I kind of think that's just going to end up being too much for him from that perspective. So that's my concern as it relates to the Bengals. They clearly do not trust Travion Williams or Chris Evans or Chase Brown. So could you have interest then in going out and targeting somebody like a Derrick Henry? Well, his numbers are still pretty solid. They are not as good as maybe they were at his best, although he is coming off a fantastic showing against the Baltimore Ravens. He's been really inconsistent this year. He's had some clunker of football games. He averaged, looking at my game notes here, 4.2 against the Saints, 3.2 against the Chargers, was awful against the Browns. Might have just been the Browns. Ran for 5.5, of course, against the Bengals, 3.3 against the Colts, 8.1 against the Ravens. Still in that 4.5 yard per carry player. Not the same guy he was in his prime, but given his workload, will probably end up being a 1,000-yard back once again. Now, this was Bleacher Report's trade idea. Bengals get Derrick Henry. The Titans get a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick. That is a lot to go out and try to trade for what would amount to really being probably a one-year rental at running back. Maybe you extend him, but at his age, you want to do that? I don't know about that. So what do you want to do? Would you do that trade we just showed you for Derrick Henry? Y for yes, N for no. It'll be the pinned comments on today's show. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and go vote. I think that's too much for me and too much for the Bengals as well. I would be shocked if they moved a second-round pick. That's a premium pick for a team that will keep telling you, we need our draft picks to replace the players we're not going to pay long-term with the Burrow and more deals set to hit the salary cap as the years move on. I would even, although he's not nearly the same caliber of player, I'd probably prefer if they went after Samaje Perine for cheaper. I can't move a second-round pick for a 4.3 yard per carry back. I get it's King Henry, but it's not like the Bengals' offensive line is elite. I'd rather go trade for a guard or Perine for like a day 3 pick swap and have a better third down back option. It's also worth mentioning one more time, the Bengals don't make many trades. Philosophically, organizationally, that is who they are. And they did make the one trade for B.J. Finney a few seasons ago as part of the Carlos Dunlap trade. But when they do make deals, it's not splashy ones. They've made like one trade deadline deal in the last like 30, 40 years, something like that. It's actually might be 50 years now. It's ridiculous. They don't do it. That's not how they operate. And if they do operate that way, it would not be a splashy deal. So there is at least one good non-splashy deal that I'm kind of intrigued by that's not the aforementioned Samaje Perine one. That we will get to here in just a little bit. But first, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You are not playing against hundreds or thousands of other players. It is just you against the numbers. You're not battling the pros, the charts, etc. You simply pick 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It is very simple and easy to play. You don't have to only pick NFL options, by the way. You can do NFL and college football. NFL, NBA, you can mix and match there. Although I think it's more entertaining if you just pick 3 NFL games. So here's what I've got this week. Tyreek Hill, more than a half touchdown. So 1 touchdown in total for Tyreek Hill. He's been so good. How does it not happen this week? Michael Pittman, less than receiving yards. I think that with the Browns defense on tap, Indy's going to have a very rough time moving the football on offense. And give me more than on Lamar Jackson passing yards this upcoming week. When you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and you use code CLNS, they will give you a first deposit match up to $100. The link and the code will be in the comment section, but one more time for you guys. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for that first deposit match up to $100. Let's talk Darren Waller here, as USA Today laid out one trade for each team, and their idea for the Bengals, submitted by Bengals Wire, was to go acquire Darren Waller of the New York Giants. I think almost all of us watching, there are maybe still a few Irv Smith truthers left out there, would agree that tight end is a need for Cincinnati. I also have my doubts about whether or not the Giants would sell Waller off so soon when they just traded for him, as disappointing as this year has been for them. I think they still view him as more than a one-year piece. The Giants save very little money. The Bengals would owe about $1 million. So it is affordable from the contract perspective. What about the trade perspective? The idea suggested by USA Today, mid-round draft pick. What does that mean? I don't know, 4th or a 5th? I would assume a 4th, given what the Giants just gave up to get Darren Waller, a top 100 draft pick right there. If the Bengals wanted to be aggressive at tight end and the Giants were willing, which I'm not sure they actually are, I'm actually very intrigued by this. The tight end room for Cincinnati has not materialized. Joe Burrow is a trust quarterback. If he does not trust you, you are not going to get targets. You are not going to get the ball thrown your way. He does not trust this tight end room right now. Irv Smith, Drew Sample, Mitchell Wilcox. We'll see if Tanner Hudson gets caught up to the game day roster. You're almost better off going 10 personnel and just having 4 receivers with Trenton Irwin out there instead of a tight end. They're not being used. We are through 6 games this season, and Bengals tight ends are not getting the football. They're averaging like 4 targets a game for 2.5 catches per game-ish, 107 yards. That's it. I mean, Jamar Chase did that in 1 game almost. I get Jamar Chase, but still, those guys are not involved. Now, Darren Waller is a much more dynamic option. He's not a great blocker. That raises some concerns, but at this point, I need pass catchers at tight end, or else you're better off just truly going 10 personnel and just going to run the ball with spread offense looks there. The numbers have been inconsistent because he's been banged up. He's been mostly healthy. I would be anxious about him getting injured again, but if you want a tight end, we'll go into some more options later on. This would be an intriguing one. So name a player who you want to trade for. I've got some more thoughts still to come here on Darren Waller, but what player would you want to go out and acquire if you ran the Cincinnati Bengals, if you were Duke Tobin and company? I still think the Giants dumping Waller would be a pretty big surprise. Bordering on shock, frankly. Yeah, they're a bad football team. Darren Waller's old. You also kind of need to see what you got in Daniel Jones, which is a problem because you haven't paid him yet, or you already paid him massive money, and you still don't know if he's a franchise guy or not. They just made the move for Darren Waller. They restructured his contract because they didn't view it as a 1-year rental. With all that said, I would like to get a tight end if I were Cincinnati. The this is the danger of always doing the buy low candidate, right? The breakout guy who is cheap, affordable, maybe has a breakout season. They're going to bust too. And that's what happened with Irv Smith. The bounce back hasn't happened. The breakout didn't happen. And now you're kind of stuck holding the bag of getting no production out of one of your starting pass catchers. That's a big problem. We will have some more trade rumors, targets, etc. for you guys right here on the channel. So make sure you are subscribed. YouTube.com/Bengals TV. Free Bengals videos when you are subscribed. Let's chat Carl Lawson. Yes, another reunion idea. This one's fun for me. Bleacher Report also mentioned this one. I think it actually might make the most sense of all three guys we discussed here. The Jets are prepared and willing to trade Carl Lawson because they have too much talent at pass rusher. They've drafted Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald in back-to-back picks in the first round the past 2 years. They have Bryce Huff. They have other guys. They don't need Carl Lawson, who basically hasn't played this season for the Jets. He is making just the vet minimum. He is as affordable as possible when it comes to a contract perspective. We'll go more in depth here on Lawson, why I'm somewhat intrigued by it. But pick one to trade for. DW for Darren Waller, DH for Derrick Henry, or CL for Carl Lawson. Pick one to trade for in the comments. Of your realistic names, I think Lawson might be the best one of this grouping because I think he's the most likely to get moved. He's done nothing this season. 3 tackles in 4 games played. Guess what he's done the previous couple of seasons? 7 sacks last year with 9 TFLs, 5.5 and 5 sacks the previous 2 years. The injuries have really negatively impacted Carl Lawson. I'll be the first to admit it. I thought the Bengals made a mistake paying Hendrickson and letting Carl Lawson walk. I was wrong. Happy to be wrong on that, but I still wouldn't mind adding Lawson back into the fold. The Bengals have several talented pass rushers. The problem is there's still some issues with this group. Hendrickson is playing awesome. Sam Hubbard remains one of the better, all-around defensive ends in the AFC right now. But the other groupings, as we'll get into, hasn't been quite as productive. Cam Samuel's actually been kind of nice for them. Where's Myles Murphy? Where's Joseph Ossai? We'll spend some more time on that. But first, my trade idea, what I think it would cost to get Carl Lawson. I think maximum 6th-round pick. That's a day 3 draft pick to help out your pass rush. I don't think it's that expensive if the Bengals wanted to break trend and go do something. Reason why I'm open to it is you're saying, well, they invested a 1st-round pick. They have Murphy. They have Josiah, and you're right. Preseason, I would have said no. Now that we're in the moment, Hubbard is a great all-around player. I thought he had a great game last week against the Seahawks. He's at 10% pressure rate. That's fine. Hendrickson's been awesome, 16 before. Cam Sample has actually been a very nice piece for this team. He's got a 15.1% pressure rate. Myles Murphy and Joseph Ossai are barely playing. This was supposed to be the Joseph Ossai breakout season. Played 51 total snaps, and he has not been efficient in those pass rush snaps he's had at the team worst 7.1% pressure rate. That's not good enough. God forbid something happens to Hubbard or, more importantly, Hendrickson. I don't have faith in this pass rush group. So you got to figure out the roster spot. I get that, but if Murphy and Ossai aren't going to impact your team this season, hopefully that changes for Ossai at least. Murphy probably still needs some more time. Yeah, I would have interest in adding Carl Lawson if I were the Cincinnati Bengals.